from a while back, but I would assume you're sort of like a favorite son.
He didn't chase fame, he dissected it. In a world where laughter often hides the truth, one British man used comedy as a weapon to expose it. His voice cut through hypocrisy like a scalpel. Sharp, deliberate, and unapologetically honest. From a modest upbringing in England to the bright chaos of American late-night TV, John Oliver became something more than a comedian. He became a modern-day storyteller of truth. Through biting satire, fearless wit, and relentless research, he turned Last Week Tonight into a cultural force, one that could make presidents nervous, CEOs defensive, and ordinary people finally understand the headlines that ruled their lives. But behind the laughter lies a paradox: the pressure of being the truth-teller in a world addicted to noise. How did a quiet, bespectacled Brit conquer America's loudest stage? And what does it take to turn comedy, the world's oldest form of escape, into its most dangerous form of truth? This is the story of John Oliver, the man who made the world laugh, think, and question everything it believed to be funny. John William Oliver was born in 1977 in Birmingham, England, far from the glamour of television lights. His father, Jim, was a strict but kind schoolteacher. His mother, Carol, a caring nurse who spent long nights tending to strangers. Together they raised their son in a world built on discipline, humility, and dry British humor. Growing up, John wasn't the loudest kid in class. He was the observer, the boy who noticed the small hypocrisies adults ignored. While other children laughed at slapstick, John laughed at irony. His earliest heroes weren't athletes or rock stars, but comedians like Monty Python, who dared to mock the absurdity of power. When his father passed away during John's teenage years, that quiet observation turned into something sharper, a voice that questioned everything. Loss taught him empathy, but also gave his humor a bite. It was in those formative years, amid grief and British reign, that Oliver's worldview took shape. Comedy wasn't just for laughter, it was for truth-telling. And though he didn't know it yet, those lessons would one day echo across America's screens. At Cambridge University, John Oliver didn't just study English, he studied the anatomy of humor. He joined the legendary Footlights comedy troupe, the same cradle that had birthed giants like Stephen Fry and Emma Thompson. It was here that Oliver began refining his craft, a blend of intellect, irony, and perfectly timed awkwardness. After graduation, he toured small comedy clubs across the UK, performing in cramped pubs with sticky floors and half-distracted audiences. His humor wasn't loud or crude. It was surgical, dissecting politics, media, and culture with the calm precision of a man who saw the absurd in everything. But destiny had a transatlantic accent. In 2006, a certain Jon Stewart saw one of Oliver's performances online and called him, inviting him to join The Daily Show as a British correspondent. What began as a side experiment quickly became a revelation. Oliver's dry delivery, unflinching sarcasm, and outsider's perspective gave American satire a new edge. By the time he guest-hosted The Daily Show in 2013, critics called him the thinking man's comedian. That moment wasn't just a promotion, it was ignition. A quiet British import had found his stage, and soon he would build one of his own. In 2014, HBO handed John Oliver a blank canvas, and he painted with chaos, courage, and truth. Last Week Tonight with John Oliver premiered quietly, but within months, it erupted into a cultural phenomenon. Each Sunday night, millions tuned in, not for breaking news, but for broken systems explained through satire. Oliver didn't just mock the week's events, he dissected them, layer by layer, until the comedy felt like revelation. His monologues became investigative journalism disguised as humor, exposing corruption in tobacco companies, FIFA, and the U.S. prison system. The formula was simple but revolutionary: research plus rage plus ridiculous metaphors, enlightenment. And it worked. The show won dozens of Emmy Awards, drew praise from journalists, and inspired real-world change. Viewers donated to charities, crashed government websites, and even forced policy debates. In an era where comedy often avoided confrontation, Oliver charged straight into it. He once said, "You can't give people hope without giving them facts." That belief made Last Week Tonight more than entertainment. It was public service through punchlines. By the late 2010s, John Oliver wasn't just another late-night host. He was the conscience of comedy, a bespectacled Brit who made America laugh, and, more importantly, made it think. But telling the truth on television comes with a price. As Last Week Tonight grew in power, so did its enemies. Corporations, politicians, and billionaires all found themselves in Oliver's crosshairs. His fearless takedowns made headlines, and lawsuits. When he exposed coal executive Bob Murray for exploiting workers, Murray sued him for defamation. Oliver didn't back down. Instead, he turned the lawsuit into another punchline. "I didn't mean to offend you, unless you're Bob Murray." Behind the laughter, however, the pressure was relentless. Each week demanded a new investigation, a sharper monologue, a louder impact. The team's schedule was brutal. Days spent in research, nights in the writer's room, weekends rehearsing. Oliver often admitted feeling burnout, the kind that comes from balancing activism with entertainment. Critics accused him of being too liberal, too preachy, or weaponizing comedy. Some questioned whether satire had crossed into propaganda. Oliver, meanwhile, stood firm. Comedy isn't about taking sides. It's about telling the side that's true. The weight of expectation, to be funny, righteous, and relevant, nearly crushed him. But even as the world tried to laugh him off, John Oliver learned something vital. Every punchline aimed at power eventually hits back, and surviving that blow would define what came next. After years of battling outrage and exhaustion, John Oliver began to evolve. He realized that shouting truth into the void wasn't enough. It had to reach people. So he softened the edges of his anger and began weaving empathy into his satire. Post-2020, the world was fractured. Pandemic, misinformation, polarization. Oliver's tone shifted from fury to clarity. Instead of simply mocking the absurd, he began explaining it, connecting the dots between broken systems and the people who suffered because of them. Episodes on immigration, racial justice, and mental health revealed a new Oliver. One less focused on mockery, more on meaning. He turned his stage into a classroom for change, teaching without preaching, laughing without cruelty. His humor matured, still sharp, still fearless, but with warmth that disarmed even his critics. He no longer sought to win the argument. He sought to humanize it. In interviews, he spoke humbly of the show's reach. If we can make someone understand something painful and still laugh, that's a miracle. Through empathy, intellect, and persistence, John Oliver redefined not only his comedy, but his purpose. He had gone from comedian to commentator to conscience. Today, John Oliver stands as more than a late-night host. He's a cultural force. In an era of noise and outrage, he proved that intelligence could still draw a crowd, that truth could still be entertaining. His legacy is not measured in ratings or awards, but in the millions of viewers who now question the world a little more critically and laugh a little more intelligently. He redefined what late-night television could be. Not just a stage for jokes, but a mirror for society. Oliver's comedy may be wrapped in humor, but beneath it lies courage. The courage to confront, to explain, and to care. He once said, "If you can laugh at something terrible, you've already started to defeat it." Perhaps that's his greatest gift, transforming laughter into resistance and cynicism into understanding. John Oliver's journey proves that wit can be a weapon, and truth, the punchline that endures.